But I considered it necessary to send you Epaphroditus, my brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier, as well as your messenger and minister to my need, since he has been longing for all of you and was distressed because you heard that he was sick. Indeed, he was so sick that he nearly died. However, God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but also on me, so that I would not have one grief on top of another. For this reason, I am very eager to send him, so that you may rejoice when you see him again, and I may be less anxious. Therefore, welcome him in the Lord with all joy, and hold men like him in honor, because he came close to death for the work of Christ, risking his life to make up what was lacking in your ministry to me.
Okay, and then I can read the message. But for right now, I'm dispatching Epaphroditus, my good friend and companion in my work. You sent him to help me out. Now I'm sending him to help you out. He has been wanting in the worst way to get back with you, especially since recovering from the illness you heard about. He's been wanting to get back and reassure you that he is fine. He nearly died, as you know, but God had mercy on him. And not only on him, he had mercy on me too. His death would have been one huge grief piled on top of all the others. So you can see why I'm so delighted to send him on to you. When you see him again, hale and hearty, and how you'll rejoice and how relieved I'll be. Give him a grand welcome, a joyful embrace. People like him deserve the best you can give. Remember the ministry to me that you started but weren't able to complete. Well, in the process of finishing up that work, he put his life on the line and nearly died doing it. So do you have something else?
I have anything on my phone, but I don't know which one.
May read ESV.
Yes. All right. I have thought it necessary to send you Epaphroditus, my brother and fellow worker and fellow soldier, and your messenger and minister to my need. For he has been longing for you all, and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. Indeed, he was ill, near to death, but God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. I am the more eager to send him, therefore, that you may rejoice at seeing him again, and that I may be less anxious. So receive him in the Lord with all joy and honor such men, for he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service to me.
Okay. And Izzy, can you read NIV?
Yes. Okay. But I think it is necessary to send you to Epaphroditus, my brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, whom he sent to take care of my needs. For he longs for all of you and is distressed because he heard he was ill. Indeed, he was ill and almost died. But God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but also on me, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore, I am all the more eager to send him, so that when you see him again, you may be glad and I may have less anxiety. So then, welcome him in the Lord with great joy and honor people like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ. He risked his life to make up for the help you yourselves could not give me.
Okay. So, basically, we see that it's talking about him, Paul saying that he's sending back Epaphroditus, and that Epaphroditus almost died, and that he should be honored when he returns. So I want to look at the, whatever these things are called, conjunctions? Okay, conjunctions and verbs. So, but I think it is necessary to send back to you Epaphroditus, my brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. For he longs for all of you and is distressed because it's not really, but it's still like a transition thing. You heard he was ill. Indeed. That's also probably not one, but whatever. He was ill, and he almost died. Almost isn't actually part of the verb, but like if you say died, it has a completely different meaning than almost died. But God had mercy, and not only on him, but also, no, it's okay. To spare me sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore, I am eager to send him. I don't know if that counts. So that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety. It's that whole thing. So then, welcome. That's a verb. That's a command. You welcome him in the Lord with great joy and honor people like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ. He risked his life to make up for the help you yourselves could not. Okay, so you see a lot of verbs, and there's definitely more that I missed, but that's okay. You get the idea. So when you look at the conjunctions, they show like transition or like contrast or reason, emphasis, any of those things. And then the verbs are where the action happens. So whenever we see this but, we should be like, but what? So what was happening right before this? That's a question for y'all to answer. Before this passage started, what was Paul talking about?
Timothy.
Yeah, he was talking about sending Timothy. And he was like, well, I'm not going to send Timothy yet, but I think I'll send Epaphroditus. Okay? So then there's a therefore. And whenever we see a therefore, what do? We see why it's there for. What it's there for?
Yeah.
That's fine. Whatever. Okay. So why is it there for?
Because it's a transition between the reason why Epaphroditus is so good, and then he's like, so that's why I'm super excited to send him.
Okay. And then this indeed adds emphasis. He's like, indeed! He's like proclaiming it, and that should draw your attention to it. And so you're like, what is he talking about? He was ill and almost died. So that's like a big deal. And then we have we have 4 because, but you can basically figure this out on your own. Okay. So now, when I went through, I asked myself some questions. So I was like, so it's my brother, co-worker, fellow soldier, messenger. What is the difference between those things? And then what does it look like for Epaphroditus to be distressed because you heard he was ill? That doesn't seem right in like our reasoning. And then what does it look like for God to have mercy? And why would Paul say sorrow upon sorrow? Isn't it, lots of sorrows? I don't know. And then it says, so that I may have less anxiety. Doesn't Paul teach that we're not supposed to be anxious about anything, but then now he's saying that he's anxious? Isn't that contradictory? What does it look like to welcome him in the Lord? And make up for the help you yourselves could not give. Why couldn't they give help? Okay, so those are the questions I asked. Now I want y'all to come up with some other questions. Anybody have anything? And y'all
And he
can like
says-
highlight it or say it. Sorry.
It says sparing sorrow upon sorrow. Is he talking about like when Epaphroditus like almost died and he'd be like sad?
Yeah, so what he's talking about is, first off, that if his friend died, he would be really sorrowful, right? He would be sad. And then also, he wouldn't have gotten any of the help that Epaphroditus sent. So he would have still been like, because in that time, if you were in jail, they didn't necessarily take care of you. You would just be there, and if nobody brought you food, then you would die because you didn't have food. And so Epaphroditus coming with money also spared him like physical sorrow from like starvation.
Alright, fine. It says he risked his life, but he got sick, so it wasn't really his choice.
Okay.
To risk his life. He just almost died.
Do you want me to answer that now?
I'm pretty sure I know the answer.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions to add?
Why is it necessary?
Okay, so since there's a really awkward silence, I'm gonna keep going now. So when Paul says it is necessary to send back Epaphroditus, so typically in that time he had taken a really long journey, like 600, I don't remember the number, lots of miles, to Rome to see Paul, and he was probably expected to stay there until they knew what was happening to Paul, and he had sufficiently comforted Paul, and until Paul was released or killed, probably. But he's coming back early, so the people in Philippi might think, well, this guy didn't do what he was supposed to do. He came back early. He's not a good Christian or whatever, because he didn't like actually care for Paul in his deepest need. So that's why he's saying that it's necessary, because he thinks it's necessary because Epaphroditus is worried about them. Epaphroditus has already cared for him, and he's already said that Timothy is with him, so it's not like he needs an extra person there. And so he just wants Epaphroditus to be back in his home with his friends and to bring news to them then. Anyone want to try to answer what the difference is between my brother, co-worker, fellow soldier, messenger?
So I guess brother is just like family, coworker, someone you work with. Fellow soldier, it's like buddies, you know? Like y'all will fight for each other. And then messenger, this is for the Philippians. He just like brings a message. So I think it's unique that they're they work together, they're family, and they will fight for each other. But he's also going to like go on this journey to go talk to other people.
Yeah. So when I was looking at it, I realized that so brother is to share in spiritual life by God's grace. So it's like a brother in Christ, right? So you can be a brother in Christ around the world or together, it doesn't really matter. But then co-worker means that he's not only a brother in Christ, but also sharing and a partnership in the gospel. And then a fellow soldier adds on to that again, and it's not just sharing in the gospel ministry, but it's taking part in spiritual warfare and standing up for Christ in the face of hostility and proclaiming the gospel. And then your messenger, it's actually the word for apostle. And so the word is technically only used for like the 12 disciples and Paul. So it shows like not only is Epaphroditus like literally sending a message, but he's also like a really strong believer and like almost at the same level as the apostles. And then nobody asked this question, but to take care of my needs. And that word to take care is liturgon, and it means to serve as a priest. And so I found this interesting because I never really think of anyone ministering to Paul. I typically think of Paul ministering to other people. But Epaphroditus was coming and serving as a priest to Paul, and like ministering to him. So it shows us that like even the people that we think are great still need someone to care for them and minister to them. And then we have, so he longs for all of you and is distressed because he heard you were ill. So longing is epipoteo, and it's like a deep concern for the Philippians. And it's the same thing that Paul said that he had for the Philippians in like the first chapter when he was like, I really want to be with y'all. But then this word distressed is adamonon. I don't really know Greek, but that's okay. And it's the same word for when Christ was distressed in Gethsemane. So like before he was gonna be killed, sweating blood, that type of distress. And if you look up like in the dictionary, it says a confused or restless state produced by physical derangement or mental distress. And so physical derangement, so they are physically separated, and he shows that he has a super deep love for the Philippians. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around that. And God's mercy. So what does mercy mean?
Like love? Yeah, like not giving you what you deserve.
Compassion?
Yeah, it's exactly what y'all said, to show for compassion or forgiveness towards someone whenever it's within your power to harm them. So it shows that it's to help in Epaphroditus' physical affliction, or to aid him. And then we kind of already answered the sorrow upon sorrow. And it just shows that like Paul is full of thankfulness to, even though like he's still in prison, he still could die, he's still like in these horrible situations that we would never want to be in, but he's grateful that Epaphroditus was there, and it points out how much help he was. And then, so when I looked up that I may have less anxiety, it's actually the word allopoteros, which means free from pain or grief. So it's not actually anxiety. So it's not like he's contradicting himself. It's actually him saying that like right now I'm like full of pain and grief because I know that Epaphroditus wants to be with you and you want to be with Epaphroditus, but both of y'all are stuck, But once Epaphroditus is with you again and y'all are reunited and y'all can share with each other and rejoice, then I'll be free from all of this pain of the burden of worrying about that. And when it says welcome him in the Lord, so that's like saying with like extra welcomeness. So, and this goes back to like they probably thought that Epaphroditus was coming back too soon, like he didn't serve Paul when he needed him. And this just shows us how Paul's reaction and what he writes shows us how we should relate to each other when we're misunderstood. Because the Philippians and were going to misunderstand Epaphroditus most likely. So Paul helped in that before it happened. And so when it says he risked his life, so Epaphroditus got sick while serving the Lord. It was a really long journey to Rome, like by sea for a really long ways, and it made them more susceptible to sickness. And so there's 2 sicknesses that he most likely got, but I forgot what they were. But basically, it was just saying that he was honoring God, and because they thought that like sickness could mean that you were apart from God's will. So it was especially important that Paul mentioned that he got sick while serving God, while doing what God said to do. And the word help here is the same word used earlier, saying like priestly service. And so, and then you yourselves could not give me. It points to that the Philippians, not all of them can take this journey. Like, not all of them are physically able, or not all of them are financially able. And we're not all called to serve in ministry and going overseas. We're all, it goes back to like, we're all the parts of the body. It's like division of labor. And so each of us are called to a different area, and we're just supposed to serve the Lord to our best in that area. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay, so why do y'all think God would want this passage in the Bible?
I think it could be used as a comparison, like saying Paul sent this person to come help this group of people, similar to how like we send missionaries and stuff to places to help people.
Yeah.
Also, it's a picture of like how we should behave as like brothers in Christ or friends or whatever, and like how much these people loved each other and would do for each other.
Yeah, we see a lot of love throughout Philippians. I think so, like, he's been going through people to compare yourselves to. So he's like, Christ, compare yourself to him for his servitude and humility. Try to be like Timothy in his like work with me, and be like Epaphroditus in his caring for other people, and serving the Lord. So how can you make this personal for you? How can it relate to you personally?
maybe we could do more for people who like also serve God or did stuff for the work of Christ.
Love others more.
Mm-hmm. Being more selfless.
Yeah. Treating other Christians like our siblings, like our family, like those that we work around, like we would fight for them.
Yeah, and it also points out like joy in the Lord again, right? So, like today, how could you apply the passage? And I can go back if you'll need me to.
Oh, be nice.
Love
Okay,
people.
go ahead.
I feel like we already answered this.
Yes, kind of. But like, just saying love people more doesn't make you love people more. If you say, I'm going to send a text message to somebody and ask them how I can pray for them and tell them that I love them and care for them, that is a way that you can apply it today.
Okay.
Okay. And another application is just like how Paul was pointing out not to jump to conclusions about Epaphroditus, and we should also not be jumping to conclusions about others. So to try to take a minute and understand other people's perspectives and point of view and like where they're coming from, and to love them even if you're like questioning them, because they're in Christ, or even if they're not in Christ. Okay.